So we can do this. So, hello everyone. Welcome to the Rest Center's workshop on financial literacy. We'd like to personally thank the Black Business and Professionals Association. Here we have their treasurer, Mr. Michael, who has extensive experience as an accountant, but he also has a lot of experience when it comes to financial literacy and being part of the association. And we want to thank the association very much for doing this workshop and partnering with us today. As you know, Rest Center is an organization that helps specifically Black youth, but Black youth in Peel region and youth in the Peel region that have faced homelessness or at risk of homelessness, and we assist them in many ways. So this is one of the ways we assist, where we help with the skills that they can not only have a home, but also be able to not just survive, but to thrive. And I'm so happy that we have some of our youth on, and I'm going to hand it over to the professional and say thank you very much for being here tonight.
So thank you, Rebecca, for having me. As you see, my name is Michael Pinnock. I am a public accountant. I've got a license to practice in the country of Canada. I currently practice in Ontario, but I can practice any of the other provinces. I also have a license to practice in the country of the US. My current license is in Massachusetts. That is where I did my, I went to Bentley University. It was a college then. And just to put a little icing on the cake, you don't hear a lot about it, but it's a specialized business university, and it's as good in their little world as a Harvard. In fact, the bus that I used to take to go to the college stopped right at the Harvard University, and then we get the shuttle bus to take us to Bentley College. And how Massachusetts work, because Massachusetts is actually the intellectual capital of the states. And in Boston in particular, there's so many universities in one little square foot. So you have the Bentley College, you have the Harvard University, you have Cambridge, you have MIT, whole bunch of them just right there. So that's where I did my study, and I did my CPA there and I have a license to practice there. And I'm from Jamaica, and I also have a license to practice in Jamaica. So as I speak, I am practicing in the 3 jurisdictions, but I do the bulk of the work in Canada, and I do, probably 20% of the type of work in Canada I do in Jamaica. I still have a practicing office down there, and I have associates that keep it going, and I have clients down there. I worked for 10 years. I'm in Canada now for 18 years, and I've worked for the first 10 in the region of York as what we call a budget analyst, senior budget analyst in the corporate finance. Our focus was on doing the property tax budgets. So all the, we go through the planning and decide and recommend to the council the percentage increases in property tax to support, the police and the fire stuff and the schools and social assistance, all those stuff you see that's coming out through the region. And since 2012, I've been full-time. I used to be part-time doing my public accounting, but since 2012, I've been full-time running my own practice, and doing it as a public accountant. Quite recently, I've done a lot of work in the social, what we call public benefit area, which is nonprofits and charities. I always work as a treasurer. I've never been particularly interested in being president. I like to feel that I work in my skill set, that I'm an expert in that little area. And, I do work very closely with all the presidents and guide them along. But I used to with an organization called MACA, Markham African Caribbean Canadian Association. Did a lot of years with them, and I was a treasurer there, and I'd stopped doing some work, and then the BBPA asked me to serve again. So over the last 15 to 18 months, since October 2019, I'm on their board as the treasurer. And one of the things we do, if you go to the BBPA.org, you'll see that we're doing a tremendous amount, if I was to say so myself. We've got about 22 programs running and actively about 10 of those programs. And one of the main things we have in terms of uh, theoretical approach or an academic approach or a learning approach is the financial literacy. So on a Tuesday, we have financial literacy for people like Rebecca and those who are here, business people, etc. And we have that for them. We call it the Level Up program. And we run that for an hour on a Tuesday. And Tuesday night, we have what is called Boss Woman, specifically for the Rebeccas and the Jackie and the Shania. We don't throw off men. You could go there, Courtney, but what you'll see is that 110 to 20 women is on that program for 2 hours from 6 to 8 on a Tuesday night, going through financial literacy and really dabbling into the details of running a business. On Wednesday, we have the Arts of Professional, where various people turn up and just tell us what they do and how they do it and why they do it. And that enhances what we do. And on Saturday, we have what we call a community space, where again, we do financial literacy for those, from the young up to the old, but it's kind of focused on the youth and the young adults. And again, we have another 120 there with the last time we look at the demographics, 75% was between, I think, 14 and 35 or some age like that. So we have a bulk of the middle-aged folks who are in university are now working. So I see all of that to put this evening approach into the same concept where financial literacy is a very, very important component of the Black community. And if we were to go back historically, remember our services was only required in the form of labor. It is the strength and the vigor that we had for 500-600 years ago that was our hallmark. And in the mid-19th century, when they threw off the shackled slavery, so to speak, we were only left with our person. Not even the clothes we had on our backs was ours. And so you leave, you're lucky if you're able to carry the clothes with you. You certainly couldn't stay in the barracks that they had you. And so one had to go out and try to work out a living. And because you weren't teach to read, you weren't teach to write, all of those stuff become new stuff for us. And we still have a legacy of that. It's not as bad as it was back then, but we still have that sort of legacy. And so we understand in the Black community that financial literacy is a key. We always say back in Jamaica, education is a key to get you out of poverty. And we pride going to high schools and then on to university. And that is what breaks you from the trench of the ghetto to the middle class. And sometimes if you're blessed and lucky, you go into really the higher echelons. But in the general Black community and in all the communities, financial literacy is a key to getting out of poverty, to creating wealth, to sustain wealth, and to be able to pass it on to the next generation. Remember what financial literacy is the knowledge about business. And there's a lot of research and a lot of what they call surveys out there. And one that I like to relate to all the time is it has been shown through surveys and otherwise that businesses, and in this case, I'm going to see individuals, fail in business, not necessarily because of lack of resources, lack of access to resources, because that is a barrier. But what they found was that half of those business, and again, I want to see by extension individuals, because a lot of the business were sole practitioners, self-employed people. What they found, it was lack of financial acumen, financial understanding why the businesses fail. So yes, you probably can't get a loan easily. Yes, you probably can't get a job, etc., etc. But even when you have those things, if you don't have financial literacy, if you don't understand the language of business, you are 50% more geared to failure than the next guy. And so we emphasize financial literacy everywhere we get a chance. Literacy in general, because you have to put the cultural and historic framework, Rebecca can tell us some of our challenges coming out of Jamaica to Canada and hoping that, this is a nice level playing field, only to realize that there are structural deficiencies, that don't allow certain things to happen. And these structural deficiencies are not by accident. They're by design, and they're maintained and keep in a certain way to ensure a certain type of result. And one of the way of breaking out from that is to finance for literacy, financially prepare literacy, prepare ourselves to be financially literate, so we understand the nuances, the words you use, why you use those words, the item you look for. So this evening, when Jackie asked me to make this presentation and the format I'm going to take, I decided let's do a fireside chat. I'm going to talk a little and then I'm going to have a discussion. We're going to reason together. But I'd also ask her, rather than just come and speak, because what you'll find if you're on this side of the camera in a Zoom, it is not so easy unless you're a reader personality, because we're used to looking in people's face and judging the body language and so on. And one of the reasons why we always ask folks to turn on their cameras is not because, yes, turn on your camera, but as a presenter, as a speaker, when you see the faces and you see, or the body movement, it either reinforces what you're doing or tell you need to change course. Unless you're a reader personality that is just used to talking in a mic and feel like, a billion people listening to you, it's a little awkward at times. So we always say, turn on your mic for a little, let's see that, we're communicating, you can turn it off again. But I've got Jackie on now and I've got Courtney, so they're kind of my cues as I do what I do. So I did ask though, what is it you'd like to talk about? So that what I say will make a difference, will resonate with you. I don't just come and talk about the moon when you want to talk about the stars, because there are things that they call it do the wrong thing completely right. That is I think it's a second class error they call, or the third class error. Because there are 4 errors. You can do the right thing right, you can do the right thing wrong, you can do the wrong thing right, and you can do the wrong thing wrong. Okay, those are the 4 things you can do. I call it errors. So what we don't want to do is to spend a lot of time on the wrong thing, even though we did it right. Worse, you do the wrong thing wrong. That is just crazy. So I asked, what is it you'd like to talk about? And you mentioned savings and investments and budgets. And so I'm going to tailor this particular presentation to those 3 areas: savings, investment, and budgets. And we'll talk a little about what is it we look for when we're doing what we do and how we can improve on what we're doing, that it will help us. Okay? So as I mentioned earlier, financial literacy is really educating itself on the language of business. And the language of business include economics, it include marketing, it include accounting. Those 3 elements work. And for those who are in the university or in colleges now, or even high school, when you're picking your subjects and you think you want to go into business or you want to be an entrepreneur, ensure that elements of your studies cover economics as a foundation. You learn the different systems and what drives them and what are the key elements. You understand some marketing. How is it you're going to go about getting your product into the market and getting paid for your product being in the market? And accounting. How do you now record what's happening so you can sit back and see, I start with $1 and I end with $1 plus, and I'm going to edit the game? Because a lot of time people are busily doing stuff, and at the end of the day, they don't know what's happening. Rather than they run the business running them, and a couple of years down the road, they're going to bankruptcy, they don't know what's happening. So ensure that marketing, economics, and accounting is part of your forte, what you do, or you surround yourself with people who can help you in those 3 areas. You have the operations and the sales and what have you, but I think those are like the 3 key pillars, where economics is the base, then you have the marketing, and then you have the reporting, which is the accounting. So savings I mean, there's a lot of definition for savings, but basically what it is as you do what you do to create wealth so you can stay alive, you put some aside for the future. As the economists will tell you, all production, everything that's produced in the world, equal everything that's consumed in the world. And if you do physics, I probably heard this, he had an exam today, Courtney, that was physics. Okay, so they have one, the law of energy receives, or the law of matter one, I can't remember the term they use. But you see,
conservation of energy
cannot be created nor destroyed, it can just be converted from one to the next. So the world has a finite amount of matter and a finite amount of energy, and you can just move it from chemical to physical but you're not creating anything new. Well, it's the same thing in economics. What they say is that everything that is produced, goods or services, is also consumed. But in the concept of saving, rather than you consume it now, you set it aside for later. So that is a concept of saving. So you go to your job, you make $100, and rather than you spend that $100 on everything today, you put $20. You're going to spend it tomorrow or the day after or the month after. You're setting aside resources for the future. Now, savings is sort of distinct from investment in the sense that it's relatively risk-free. You put your $20 under your bed, your mattress, or you put it in your little piggy bank, or you put it in an institution called a bank. And it's kind of there, it's not risky. Nothing will happen to it. You hope that if you put $20 today, 5 years from now, you'll get back at least your $20. So that's a concept of saving. When you get into investment, it's a different kind of concept. It is still the savings, it's still the money that you set aside today to use in the future. But you hope to make that money grow. While the saving is just sitting there, kind of mundane, not doing anything, and you'll get it back. When you go into what is considered investment, you want that $20 to now give you 21 or 22 or 23. So you put it in what is called an earning instrument, where that money now start to work for you. And I could talk for the rest of the year on that part of the business, the mutual funds and the stock exchange and this and that. But the concept of investment is that the money itself now, under our system of free market, you can put it somewhere where that money, in addition to you working normally, that money is now also working. And they talk about interest and compound interest. And you can put that money in there today and you can get it a year from now. But rather than you get $20, you probably get 22 or 23 or 25. Now, the thing with investment, though, is that it comes with what is called a risk. And you know what risks are? It's the probability that something may go wrong that changes your expectation or changes the result of your expectation. It's a peril that will make things go wrong. That's what they call a risk. So when you put your money there for $20, the person who's selling you that investment will say to you, you want high interest rate, high rewards, high risk. So you could put your $20 there today and lose it, or you could put your $20 there today and double it. So when you talk about savings, it's putting money, as putting resources, not just money, putting resources aside, kind of risk-free. Investment is putting resources aside that would work for you, but it's as risky as you want it to be. We think about some of the practical stuff now where you could put, say, $20 in what they call a guarantee investment certificate, a GIC. And the bank will tell you, will give you 0.5% for the year. But you're certain that at the end of the year, you'll have your $20 plus the 0.5% interest. Because it's guaranteed. Or they could say, listen, we can put your thing on a hedge fund or a mutual fund where it can grow by 10%, or you can lose the whole of it. So Jackie may have to help me with some of the reading in the
Yes,
chat
so
here.
Shania has a question. Since savings doesn't grow your money, would you still recommend it or just stick with investments? And Shania is actually the one who asked for the investments talk. So
Okay,
congratulations. I want to big up Shania for responding when we reached out and asked. So that was her question in the text.
right. So Shania, this is what I see the folks. I always say to folks, I'm not providing investment or saving advice just because I'm a practitioner. And so when you understand that, the second thing I always say to folks is that you need to do your own research on whatever you want to do and sort of come to your own understanding of where you want to do and what you want to do. Having said that, though, the concept of savings is really just setting aside some resources that you want to use in the future. Let's assume that you're at boarding school, for example. You live in Markham and you're in England. You're going to the London School of Economics or someplace like that. And while you're there, you get a stipend for whatever you do. You probably work in the lab as a lab tech and so on. When you get those monies, you could decide that, you know what, you don't want to spend these monies in England. You want to wait until you come back in Canada a year time to spend the money. So all the pound that you're earning there, you could just save it in your little piggy bank. And then when you come to Canada, you have it to spend. No, the money is not growing. It's just whatever you earn is whatever you still have. And that is a concept of savings. However, if that's not your objective, what you want to do is to start with £1 in England. And at the end of the day or the end of the week, you have £1 and a pence. Then you have to put that in investment. You have to know make that money work for you. So it's almost an individual decision. If you're not a risk taker, put your money in savings. It's not going to grow, but chances are you're not going to lose it. If you want to
So
take
that
risks,
leads to the next question. Is how can you ensure safety when making an investment? So because you said
well,
it, that's
you know
why.
what? There is no such thing. That's why they call it risk. Even when you drive on the road each day, we in Canada drive on the right side of the road. In Jamaica, you drive on the left side of the road. But while you're driving on the right side of the road in Canada, the guy that is coming facing you, the opposite guy, you're hoping that he also stays on the right side of his road. Because God forbid he comes on your side, then you have an accident. So every time you drive on a Canadian road, there is the risk that you can have an accident by somebody coming over on your side. But you still have to drive on the road and hope that everybody is as risk conscious as you are on your side. Same thing like in an investment. You have to do your research. You have to look at the companies you want to invest your money in or who you want to give your money to invest and ask yourself how risky it is. The higher the rewards is the higher the risk. So if somebody say, I'll take your dollar and give you 1%, well, in this environment, 1% is probably very high. But let's assume that another guy will take your money and he promise you 10%. You can bet your sweet life that the risk of 10% returns is far greater than the risk of the 1%. He's probably putting your money in cryptocurrencies or something that is so, it changes so frequent that anything can happen. So the answer to that question is you have people in the world, psychologists will tell you, you have people in the world who are risk averse, like the person speaking now. I just keep my money, okay, I gave you $10, you'll give me back. But you have other folks that they're just high risk takers. And sometimes at the end of the day, the high risk taker wins, sometimes the high risk taker loses. It's just the nature of the market that you're in. So the answer is there's really no right answer, Shania. What you can do is try to mitigate the risk by doing some stuff. You can try to minimize it. And there are approaches you can use. For example, insurance. You can buy insurance to cover your risk. So let's assume that you're in a business, and like with the COVID now, People who were in the business long ago were smart persons. They bought insurance called business interruption insurance. And what they had in mind is not necessarily a COVID, but any peril, anything. You could have a fire, you could have all sort of stuff, and the business had to shut down. And the revenue that they'd be losing over that time, they buy insurance to ensure that if you have the business interruption, the insurance company would still pay them. So those who were affected in the COVID who had that, they didn't have to apply for any loan or any grants or anything from government. The insurance company just doled out the average revenue they would have earned. So that is one way you can use to mitigate your risk. In fact, that I call it transferring your risk. What you have done is rather than you bear the risk, you have transferred it to the insurance company. And for that, the insurance company will charge you a premium. And you know what? Probably for 50 years, you never have an interruption. But then the 51st year, you have a major interruption. There's a fire, there's a strike, there's a flood, there's a COVID. And remember now that we're in COVID for one full year. Right? March 13th is one full year since Toronto shut down. So some companies couldn't last that long. Some companies had a couple of weeks, some companies a couple of months. Most companies now, if they're affected, like in the food, the entertainment, the restaurants, and so on, they have found ways now to convert that risk that they face into other things. They're doing now takeouts and Uber Eats and that kind of stuff. So a lot of them have now pivoted and they're coming back on their foot. But that is how you can deal with risk, Sinead. You can actually transfer the risk. Another way you can avoid it, you can just don't do the things that are risky. Or you can actually accept it. You can know that this is risky, but you're still going to do it. As I mentioned with the driving on the road or the flying in a plane. You know, those things are high risk, but you still have to do it and you just accept the consequences of the risk. So, you know, there's a number of ways you can do that.
So we have two things. What would you say to a beginner investor? And you did say research, but when you're doing the research, what kind of things do you research? Because I know you mentioned, which it's not just researching the returns, or if you're buying stocks, what is it selling now and what is it buying for? You also have to, what I'm hearing is research the company.
That is my
and who's running
that
it.
is my recommendation. It's always good to look at where the stock is and try to beat the market. That's what they call day traders. Remember, first of all, what is happening now is that the stock exchange, the concept of the stock exchange was not necessarily designed to do what it's doing now. The original concept was for people who needed money to grow their business or to start a business would find a place with people who have savings and want to make a little more to put there. But you have folks who call day traders now. Now, what they do, they try to beat the market by buying stocks at a certain rate. They call it buy it low and sell high. So they buy the stock in the morning and they'll sell it by 5 o'clock in the evening. And they will make the benefit from what they call that capital gains. So when I say research, though, that is not what I'm talking about. That is good. But what I'm talking about is the underlying economics. Remember I mentioned economics and marketing and accounting? It's the underlying economics. Look at the company themselves. Look at their balance sheet. Look at their profit and loss account. Look at their cash flow. Read the notes to their statements. Look at it over multiple years. What is it they're doing? What products are they selling? Is a product something that will grow in the market? Or is it something that, let's assume, I'm going to give you a weird example now. If someone was to create a company that's going to make buggy whips for carrying a horse carriage, what's the possibility that they'll be selling a lot of buggy whips right now? So when you look at that company, would you say, I'm going to invest my money in there because it has a growth potential? Probably not. Or probably they'll find a little niche market in the movie industry where they're the only guys are going to make buggy whips for the movie industry. And that's a growing market in their little segment. Take Zoom, for example, right now. A year ago, Zoom was just another struggling virtual platform that universities and colleges use. But now Zoom, the last time I checked, Zoom was the #2. In fact, they may have flipped now. They have grown so much I think that the revenue of supply went up like 100-fold. But who would have known that 2 years ago? But probably if you're looking at their balance sheet, their cash flow and so on, you're looking at their notes, you're looking at the environment in which you live, okay, there's, because a lot of folks see, they knew something was going to happen. They never knew it was COVID, but they knew something big was going to happen. Now, something that we can look at if you want to do investment, they've got a set of stocks that they call the beach stock. It's the B stand for bookends, and the A is for airlines, E is for entertainment, C is for cruise ship, and H is for hotel. So it's a beach stock. What will happen as soon as we get out of this COVID environment, or we start to manage it better? You're going to have a boom for people just relieving their distress. So hotels and stuff like that, you want to keep your eye on those stocks and probably start to buy into some of those stocks now, because they will boom in another 18 or so months. Because this COVID can't last forever. And as soon as you get it under control, people are going to start to travel all over the world. Hotels are going to be overbooked. The beach is going to be crowded. The casino is going to be crowded. The entertainment district, the hotels, those things. So that is the kind of analysis I'm talking about and the research. Okay. I want to get in some core things because I'm mindful of the time. I want to get in some core things and then I'll come back and take the questions. So we want to look at budget. So we talk about savings and we talk about investment. Now we want to talk about a budget. Now, basically, a budget is a plan of action. That's what it is. It's a plan to do something and you convert it into financial terms. One of the key components of a real budget, though, is that you should have it written down so it's available for reflection and feedback, and it's also useful to other people. So you should make it formal. When you say you have a budget, it shouldn't be just something in your head. You should actually commit it to people and convert a business plan, which is a narrative about what is you'd like to do, how you'd like to do it, convert that into dollar figures. So I'm going to give you some pointers quickly. What are a couple of areas you want to look at when you're doing your personal budget? First one is food. And you may want to do the budget on a monthly basis. Then you do a 12 months budget and then you do multi-year budget. You want to look at your consumption of food. What is required? Your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner, probably a snack before you go to bed. You want to look at that and see, what is it costing? How are you accumulating that? Are you going to the supermarket and buying grocery that will last for the week? Or are you snacking out, or are you going there every time you need something? So you want to look at the food and you want to put the dollar value beside it. You want to look at housing. Shelter, we tend to call it. Is it rent you're paying or is it mortgage? But you have to pay one or two unless you've been around as old as me and you end up paying a mortgage already and that kind of stuff. But if you're upcoming now, you have to look at either rent or mortgage. You will be paying one of those because you have to be in some shelter. And either you own the shelter or you rent the shelter. Another part of that housing is the utilities that come with it. The gas, the light, the water. Most of the time, whether you own your house or rent it, those are additional costs that come with it. Every now and again, there's some maintenance to be done to it. If you're in a rented apartment, probably the bulk of the maintenance is not yours. But if you own it, it might be yours. But as part of your rent, you better believe you'd have paid some amount of maintenance as part of your rent. So you want to look at those stuff and you want to put a dollar figure beside them. Take your utility bill and see, what is it for water? What is it for light? What is it for gas? You want to look and see if you cut the lawn, how frequent you cut the lawn, and what it costs you to cut the lawn. Okay. Clothing. What is it you do? Is it that you get a uniform when you go work so you don't have to pay for it? Or you have to get a uniform like me as an accountant? I have to have a ton of suits, like a lawyer. And they're not cheap, but it's part of the decor. Is it that you're buying a lot of brand name stuff, or you're buying utility stuff? We have to look and itemize what is it you're spending your money on when it comes to clothing. Entertainment, a lot of folks don't think about entertainment, but that's part of of being a human being. And the funny thing is that under entertainment, they put education. What is it costing you to educate yourself? Either know that you're in university and probably somebody covering that cost, or know that you leave university retraining. Rebecca mentioned earlier that is one of the things she had to do when she came here. Came with a big qualification and years of experience, but she had to go back to school. What will that cost and for how long will that run? And what will you get after you get that fancy upgrade of your skills? Will you in a position to get a better job to recover? Transportation. Is it public transportation? Or is it private? Or is it both? You know, is it both? Because sometimes you drive your private car to a parking spot and then you take the train. You know, and you have private, you have to pay for the parking and you pay for the train ticket. So you want to see what are the elements there. Cable. People have cable and people have TV. They have internet and they have a cell phone. So they have multiple cell phones. You want to be looking at what is it costing you to run those stuff, because that is all part of this entertainment. I put credit card here, not because credit card is an expense, but a lot of time we use credit card to fund what we're doing. So when you look at all those expenses I just mentioned, there are costs: food, housing, clothing, entertainment. And that is what they call, psychologists will tell you, and there's this guy that they call Maslow, talk about the hierarchy of needs. This is the basic need. You have to satisfy these needs before you can really transition into the other needs. And these are what I call non-discretionary. So you want to identify the various costs, you want to identify the amount of these costs, and you also want to identify, do you have control over the monthly amount? For example, your rent. That is non-discretionary and it's mandatory. You have a fixed rent and it tends to go for 12 months before it changes. And you have to pay it by the 25th, effective the 1st. And if you don't, you have problems with the landlord and they'll kick you out. If you have a car loan, that's a fixed amount as well. It's non-discretionary, you have no choice. If you don't pay it, they'll come for the car. So you want to look at the cost that you're facing and then ask, what's the amount and do I have control over it? If you don't, then you have to separate those, ensure that those are covered when you're doing your budget. Then you look at the other stuff. And then you ask yourself, how can I manage them? You may think, for example, that the utility bills, the telephone, the light, the water, the gas, you may think you have no control over those. But what drives those? They're not fixed. They're variable. They're driven by their usage. So for example, when I get my utility bills each month, I don't necessarily look at the dollar figure. I look to see how much kilowatt I've used, how much megaliters of water, how much megaliter of gas, because I'm looking at the usage and I talk about the usage. So you can control your utility bills if you control your usage. So that is how a budget helps you. You're paying $2,000 a month for these things, and you figure, whoa, how can I get it down to 1,000? Look at the usage. The usage will then advise you, what is the pattern? Am I doing my own laundry? For a number of years when I just came to Canada, I thought doing my own laundry was better, was cheaper, was that kind of stuff. And the first time I didn't have the time and took it to the laundromat, I realized it's cheaper and it gave me more time to do my stuff. I didn't have to take them down to the basement to do the washing, then I had to do the laundry myself or my wife would do it. I just take it over there, and the dollar figure in terms of my own personal time to do it and the utility and so on, I find that it was more cost effective. I wouldn't say cheap, but that's not a good word to use because there's nothing really cheap as well. It's cost effective. So for example, even if you're laundering that you're doing, you can look to see, does it make sense doing it in-house or take it to a laundry? And sometimes there's no right or wrong. Sometimes you'll find that doing it by yourself is more cost effective than taking it to a dry cleaner or a laundry to do. The idea I want to convey here is don't believe these costs are just fixed and frozen. You do have control over them. If you look at, first, there's a concept in management which says if it's not measured, it's not managed. So the first thing you want to do is to be able to measure the cost by noting the cost. Then you'll be able to manage the cost when you know what it is. And savings is part of that budget. You should also budget to save or budget to invest, whichever one is comfortable for you. And there's a lot of investment vehicle and saving vehicle. One that a lot of folks are not using, which is really cost effective, is retirements, RRSPs. Each year when you do your taxes, the government allow you about 20% of your earned income to go into a tax-free account that you can use deferred way down the line, and you can actually use it if it's your first home you're buying under your home buyer's plan. So rather than paying the government these taxes at the end of the year, you should put some of these money into RRSP that for dollar reduces your taxes by 15%. And at the same time, saving, but it has to be part of your budget. What your budget would also tell you is that there's an extreme. I have a brother who I said to him once, how are you living? Because he was saving like 95% of his pay. I said, how do you live? Can you live on 5% of your pay? But what really was happening is that he wasn't living on 5% of his pay. He was living off other folks. So he's able to save his money because his expenses were covered by other folks. He share a little here, share a little there, and so on. So the key thing too is not just you want to save. You shouldn't just get up and say, I should save 25% of my salary. That's a good rule of thumb. But probably your current situation will allow you to do that. But if you can save 10% or 5%, you should. And some of the time you'll find that you can save 30%. And you save that. So, but you have to do a budget, and it starts with identifying the elements of costs that affect you, then determining whether these costs is, first of all, if they're mandatory or they're discretionary. That is, you have control over them. The second level to look at is whether they are variable. That is, they vary with some usage or time or something like that, or they're fixed. It's like if you talk to one of the telephone company, they'll tell you they can give you some fix, can make it fix, or they can make it based on your usage. You have to now determine whether fix makes sense to you or variable makes sense to you. Even managing your cell phone, some folks pay for credit. And when the credit finish, that is it. Some folks just pay for it monthly. I remember when I just came to Canada and I was calling back home, I found out that a good way to manage my telephone bill was to buy some cards that are called CC. These are some telephone cards. And you'd pay $20 for the card and you could speak for like 5 hours. So I'll buy the card, I'll call, and I'll chat for a long time, and then whenever it finishes, it finishes. But that is just $20. As against when I used to use my straight line, I would talk forever because, and it's only when I get the bill I know that $20 now is $100. Because not only was the rate higher, but I talk for a longer time. So you have to look now to see if it's variable. And if it's variable, it means you can control it. And then finally, there's some things that you just do because you're a human being. You just want to take care of yourself. So you just have some money there for just doing some stuff, the thing that you didn't plan. You just pop in, and the marketers will tell you when you go into a supermarket, there's a stuff they call impulse buying. You notice when you get up to the cashier, there's all the sweets and the this and the magazines. They're put there for a reason because people buy them by impulse. And so impulse buying or impulse spending is one of those stuff that eat away at your budget if you didn't plan it. Now, finally, I'd like to say in this area is that unlike the government, individuals and businesses don't control their revenue. They control their expenses. They hope that they can sell the widgets and get the revenue that they want, but they have no control over that. Same thing with individuals. Your revenue is probably fixed if you're working as an employee. And so that is the maximum you'll get for the period, and you have to work within that maximum. The government don't have that. What the government can do, in fact, how the government do their budget is they start with the expense first, and then they decide how they're going to get the revenue by increasing taxes or that sort of stuff. So the government actually start with their expense and then match it with the budget, with the revenue. We can't do that. We have to start with the fixed revenue we have, or even if it's variable, what it is, and then our expense. If it's more than the revenue, it means that we're eating away on our savings, or we're using other people's money, or we're using credit cards or something like that. That's going to burn us eventually. And if we're using less, it means we have the ability to save. I'll take a break and hope we can take questions and so on, and I have manipulated the airwaves. Thanks.
So do we have any more questions? I think that was amazing. I mean, takeaways that I got from that was being an energy person, again, looking at your variable costs versus your fixed costs and trying to budget the differences. That was a definite takeaway. Does anybody else have any takeaways at the Courtney? I know I can always trust on Courtney.
Courtney's a physicist. He's a
Yes.
scientist, so he ought to know predictability and stuff.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I learned a lot, especially budgeting, because I wasn't so in tune with financial literacy until I reached this point in my life, because I was always a miser before. So now that I'm trying to get a job, I'm trying to learn different ways to save while also can spend some more as well, So I jot down a lot of notes.
Okay.
Can I jump in here?
Yes.
No problem.
Yeah, so I learned a lot. Thank you so much, Michael. And I think my main takeaways are the sort of saving 10 to 30%. I think that's really important. And about investing in the tourist industry, because absolutely before COVID, it was, raging. Why wouldn't it go back to that post the pandemic? So I think that's some really good advice, and I will definitely take it on board.
Thank you, Jackie.
And I like what you said about it, that Jackie, as well, the 10 to 30%. I love the tip where instead of giving the tax man the money, put it in your tax-free savings account.
Well, I actually liked his brother's approach, which is to live on, live on other people. I never thought of that.
Well, you see, that is not sustainable. You can do, well, you know what? Let me take it back. It can last as long as there's people enabling it.
Yeah, gotcha.
And he's been at it for a while. I remember the last time I see how you do it. You cannot be saving 95 cents out of every dollar. How you live. But then I realized he comes by me and he goes by his other brother, and, and that is how we're actually supporting his real expenses,
Clearly.
Yeah.
Courtney, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, what would you like for like a first-time investor, right? Like someone of my age, what would be the best thing to invest in?
Growth stocks.
Growth?
Growth stocks. Growth stocks that are property based. That's what I say. Look at the stocks that are out there now. There's a lot of companies that are doing well and will continue. Not just tech stocks, but stocks that are going to be disruptive in communication going forward. Things to do with communication. Like as I say, if I was a stock person, I would have put money in Zoom. Because, that, and we're not going back. This is a new normal. even if they find a cure, not just a vaccine, but even if they find a cure for COVID tomorrow, we're still going to have Zoom, because Zoom is more efficient, more productive. You have a farther reach, you have more depth. Now we're talking from, I don't know, 10 different locations right now, 7 different locations. If we all had to meet downtown Toronto in the most luxurious hotel to have this, we may not have had so many people. They all have to travel from different places to get there. And so you save the travel time by just having the actual work. You know, so I'd say, you know, smart money would look at stocks that are in the communication fields now. I don't want to call names because it can get me in trouble, but do your research
No
and
problem.
you'll see those companies that are you know, in communication. As I mentioned earlier, they call them beach stock, BEACH, right?
Beach entertainment airlines.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's
Mhm.
bookings and entertainment, airlines, cruise ship, and hotel. That's the kind of acronym. They will have an explosion. It may not last more than, you know, 4 or 5 years, but people are just, if the government was to come out tomorrow and say, COVID, if you can go back to what you used to do, there'd be a party down in Toronto. Because people just want to get out, and, you know, 1 year of, you know, locking up, people just want to go out, and they will travel. You know,
Thank you
so
so much.
buy the stocks now when it's low, and you hold it. And remember, as I said, the key thing about owning stock is not the day trading. A lot of folks focus on day trading. That is, to buy the stock for $1 in the morning and you sell it for $1.50 in the evening. That's not the purpose of really investing in stock. It's to hold it for the long haul, because you should get dividends from the company. The company should be paying you dividends each year. And then it's a store of wealth. Down the road, when you know you want to get out of it, you should be able to sell it for more than you had bought it at a capital gain. It's not the day traders. This day trading is a different kettle of fish. There's somebody in his basement with 10 computers tracking every stock everywhere in the world and deciding to buy and to sell and to buy and to sell. Right? That's not what I recommend. That's a real expert who do day trading. So folks, they do that. Traders, you give them your money and they don't tell you what they're doing, but it's legal. That is what they're doing. They take it and they day trade, and they, you know, they pay some dividends and that kind of stuff. But I'd certainly go into those, and property, anything to do with real property, land, you know, not so much building, but more holding a land where you can put factories on it and that kind of stuff. Those are always good. I'm tempted to say Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, but I've got my own position on cryptocurrencies. So, but some folks are putting money there. Again, you have to put it in early and take it out. If you hold it too long, you're going to get burned.
Well, I want to thank you so much. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, no, Shania, because I know she had all investment questions and I was really happy.
Is she satisfied with the answers? Because I'm still
hi,
here.
Shania, yes.
Hi. Yeah, he pretty much knocked everything that I wanted to know. So I'm good.
Really?
Oh, that's great. Well, can you do the thank you for me?
I didn't prepare anything, but okay. Thank you so much, Michael, for taking the time to speak to us about budgeting and investing and just, you know, planting the seeds in our minds to, you know, come up with our own financial plans. So
thank you. And it was a pleasure being here. I try to make myself as available as possible. When I was your age, and I don't know your age, but I know you're certainly much younger than me. We weren't talking about these things, and that is why when you reach my age, sometimes a little difficult to you know, you don't see the wealth. It's when you're young, you want to start to create this atmosphere of building wealth. So when you get, you know, 20, 40 years down the road, $1 now becomes $1 million. That is where you see it. So it's good that you're asking this question at this time, at this age, and it's good that you're getting into investment. Because as I mentioned at the start of the program, when we're set free, We only owned our person. That's all we had. Not even the clothes on our backs was ours. So we had nothing to give to the next generation. One of the things we're trying to do now is to create what they call intergenerational wealth so we can pass it on to our kids. They don't have to work as hard as we did, and we didn't have to work as hard as our parents did, etc., etc. So there's real progress in the system, and it starts right now. So thanks for having me, and I hope I didn't part something that would make a difference.
You did very. Oh, you're getting claps from Courtney. He's a So I'm going to thank you very much. Remember, we have all these workshops. This workshop is going to be uploaded on YouTube so that you can see it at any time. And we're going to have little questionnaires so you can reinforce the information. We also have upcoming how to make your room into a home. We have networking and using LinkedIn. We have how to create good, positive peer relationships. So many workshops are happening. You can go to the BYM Peel YouTube channel to get all the workshops. And I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you very, very, very much. And thank you to the BBPA, the Black Business and Professional Association of Toronto. Thank you so much. Please go to their website at
BBPA.org.
Two B's?
Yeah, Black Business Professional Association.org.
.org, please, because you heard earlier on in the show, sorry, earlier on in the workshop, we actually, you were doing so many literacy, and Shania, you came in, but they actually have one for women on a Tuesday.
Yeah, on a Tuesday night. It's called Boss Woman 6 to 8. Lovely program, 120 women out there. And these are business people with actual, real, running their own business and asking the question. So it's what people want to do startup, people want to sustain, people want to grow, people want to scale up, and those who just want to hear to learn.
Yeah.
And it's tailored, it's delivered by our president, who is is a beautiful woman as well, The link is, I can put the link in the chat. I can do that, don't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, actually, she just received a leadership award from Every Girl Wins, which is a world award for Canada. She's just an amazing woman and president. But the leadership, I mean, you saw tonight, you're their treasurer. You gave such a talk. I mean, I saw the interest happening. Oh, there's even party. I love the emojis. So thank you so much. And thank you for joining Rest.